I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. And I believe this is getting close to our last City of Shelton Commission meetings. The next one will be called a council meeting, I think. Am I wrong? We have one more?
May
Okay.
1, I think.
All right, okay.
One more in May.
All right, one more. All right, first thing tonight, we're going to have a proclamation read to us, and that's going to be presented to us by Mark Ziegler or his associate, or somebody else. Are you going to read this, Mark? Or just
yes.
talk about it?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We once again bring to you the proclamation proclaiming Arbor Day on April 27th at the City of Shelton. The proclamation reads, whereas trees and forest products have played a vital role in the history of the City of Shelton, and whereas the presence of trees throughout the city contributes to the natural beauty and livability of the community as a whole, and whereas the celebration of Arbor Day is a long-standing tradition for cities that wish to display their support of trees in the community. Now therefore, the City of Shelton Commission does hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018 Arbor Day in the City of Shelton, and urge all citizens to continue to recognize the importance of trees in our community and express this through the recognition and celebration of Arbor Day. And with this, I have a new flag, so it's our fifth year in a row that the City of Shelton has received Tree City USA status. And essentially, to qualify for the Tree City USA status, we need to have a tree management plan for our public trees. We need to spend $3 per capita on the management of those trees, and we do that naturally. We don't necessarily have a tree management budget, but between our Parks Department and our Public Works Department, we manage our trees. We prune them, we check them for safety, we plant a couple every once in a while in replacement or new projects, and we also remove some trees. So that's all part of that management plan. And so I'd like to get a photo op with the flag here so we can meet
Mark,
some of the criteria.
Do we have any plans to plant any trees in the next few months, or?
Well, actually, we have a number of street trees. Craig could probably fill us in on the number of street trees on Alder. But we certainly have those, and we're gonna. So that's part of this plan that we have. We will include a management plan for the new trees that we plant and the street trees on the Alder Street project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so on the photo op, what do you want to do?
Let's. We got a flag to hold up, and we'll have Annie.
Yeah, he said photo op. What do you want us to just
Yeah, I think we
stand
should
here
maybe
or come down there?
Come on down so we
Okay.
get you in there.
We can do.
And hold up the flag here. We'll give it right side up.
Ladies first. Chief.
There you go, sir. Thank you.
Are they different every year?
A little bit, yes. We'll find a place.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, next is our,
These two surveys.
basically our weekly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly commission reports. And Mr. Dorsey, did you have some things that you wanted to talk to us about?
Sure. Today, I just got back from Mason Transit Board Authority meeting out at the Port of Allen this time. Tomorrow, I meet with Troy Nichols at 11:30 right here at the Civic Center. On Thursday, I meet with Bob Slavin from Slavin Consultants at 2:30 right here. And Friday, I'm going to a seminar on land use over in Lacey from, it's all day, 9 to 4:30. And I would like to just take a second, if I can,
Absolutely.
and congratulate the people in the audience here that are running for council on running a farming campaign. I know what it's like. It's a lot of work, and you guys have kept it clean. I haven't heard too much negative stuff, and I just wanted to congratulate you, because I think, was it Tuesday is the day? So, good job.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner McDowell?
Today I had my CareNet board meeting. Tomorrow I'm meeting with Troy Nichols at 11. Thursday, I'm meeting with Slavin Consultants, City Manager Search, 1:30. Next Tuesday is Election Day, so we're excited about that. 25th, I have a Memorial Hall Board meeting, and the 26th, my briefing with Vicki, and that's my 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or however long.
Thank you very much. And I missed last week's because I'm getting my mind on to doing this every 2 weeks. And so what I did last week, on Tuesday, I was at my MACECOM board meeting. Last Thursday, I was at an EDC board meeting. Thursday, I also had a staff briefing. This week, I will be meeting also with Troy Nichols, and you've heard that name 3 times. Troy is the director of the Olympia Master Builders, and Mason County, Shelton is kind of part of that experience, and so we're just going to talk to him about building issues, and so I think he is called the director of that. Is that the correct?
No.
Not director? What is he then? Yeah. Isn't he the director?
He's not with Olympia Master Builders anymore.
He's not?
No, he's a,
Former director. All right, former director. So what is his position now? Do we know that?
he's a lobbyist.
A lobbyist, okay. So probably about building issues and whatnot. So I'm also meeting with him on, and on that day, also, I will be having in the morning my criminal justice board meeting. Thursday, also, I'll be meeting with Mr. Slavin, right, not Slan, and I also have a staff briefing on that day. So that completes our weekly commission reports. Next is a public comment period. If someone wants to speak, all you have to do is sign up, and we'd be happy to hear from you.
We have no one signed up.
All right. So, moving on to the consent agenda, as my fellow commissioners had ample opportunity to review the material in the consent agenda.
Yes.
Okay, are we ready for a reading of that agenda?
Yes.
Yes. So, could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Voucher number 17126 in the amount of $6,680.41. Vouchers numbered 17127 through 17214 in the amount of $150,015.62. Payroll warrants numbered 1494 through 1644 and 17105 through 17125 in the amount of $675,622.97. Minutes from the business meeting of April 3rd, 2018.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Consent agenda passes. Item number E is our business agenda. We have several items on that tonight. And so, actually, I'm going to just take a second to do a plug for my friend Dwayne Wilson. And that is for Bluegrass from the forest here every year. We've been doing this, and this is a fun, exciting thing. And so I just want everybody to know from May 18th to the 20th that it's called Bluegrass from the Forest. And Dwayne, I said I would plug this for him, and so it's a little public service announcement that this is a good event to attend. And even Craig Greger, if he picked up his old guitar, could probably go out there and jam with those guys. You know, were you a guitar player? No. So maybe,
You can still do it.
maybe no can do on that one. All right, back to the business agenda. We have, is Jason Does is going to talk to us about an action item and about the school system here, so.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the commission. I am happy to be before you this evening again for another school district project. As you know, the school district passed a bond in 2017 that included a number of projects, one of which was a major expansion to Shelton High School. That's what I'm here for this evening. In March, we held a public hearing before the City of Shelton Hearings Examiner for a special use permit because of the school's location within our airport overlay zones in order to expand, similar to what I was before you last month for Mountain View Elementary School. They needed a special use permit to allow for a 3-story, little over 47,000 square foot classroom and administrative building addition, and a 7,000 square foot auxiliary gym addition, as well as a number of upgrades, general mechanical upgrades, electrical, paint, roofing throughout the campus. As part of the proposal, they are going to be vacating some rooms and removing some modular classrooms that are located in what's referred to as Zone 3 of the airport overlays. I won't bore you with the details, but the additions would occur in Zone 6. Now, they worked with a number of stakeholders during the design process that included the city, the Port of Shelton, who operates Sanderson Field, who those regulations are meant to protect. And the hearings examiner did recommend approval, that the commission approve it, subject to 7 conditions. And what I'm asking for this evening is that you put this item on for your action agenda at your next meeting, and we will be asking that you approve the resolution that is attached to this staff report at that time.
All right, are there any questions or comments for Jason?
Not at this, not right now.
So you've been working very closely with the school district and everything's working out real good?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay, I'm excited about this because that was quite a bond issue that they floated, and this community really got behind this. So I want to make sure that we can help them accommodate doing their project. And so I read through this. It appears that everything's in order. And so at this time, I think unless someone has a complaint against this, we concur to place this on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. We concur. Thank you. All right, item number 2 is Craig Gregory is going to talk about some surplus equipment.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I know we have quite a bit on the agenda tonight, so I will try to keep all of these short and move right through them. We are looking to surplus some enterprise fund miscellaneous tools, small tools, all the way up to some vehicles that are no longer of use to any of our enterprise funds at this point. We have followed city policy on the surplus of these. They have been offered to other departments. All other city departments have declined. So at this point, we would like to move forward with surplusing them to the public.
What's a trash pump?
It is a pump that we used to use for flooding. It's basically got an intake hose and a discharge hose to move water. And like I said, we used to use it during flooding events. We don't have a lot of those, and these are aging pumps that we are looking to get rid of.
Some, right?
Yeah, somewhat.
We still have some?
We do.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments for Craig Gregory?
Not for me.
It appears this is just doing a service to, no sense in having equipment sitting around that we're not using. So I think that we concur to place this resolution 1123-0418 on the list of surplus items on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. All right. Again, Craig Gregory is going to talk again about some surplus vehicles and equipment.
So the reason that we split these up, Mayor and Commissioners, is there is a slightly different procedure to move through with enterprise fund surplus as opposed to what would be general fund surplus. So basically the same process. We are looking to surplus some miscellaneous items out of general fund properties at this point.
Any questions or comments for Craig Gregory?
So the revenues will go where?
Revenues from the enterprise
From
fund.
the sales?
Yes, these that we're talking about that you have in front of you now will go back into the general fund.
Okay.
The previous ones that were from the enterprise fund, whatever enterprise fund it was out of, will go back into that fund.
Okay.
So are you advertising these out for people, or are you going to have this open to the public? Or
We
what?
are going to advertise for a couple of weeks in the Shelton Journal, and then we will have a 3-day viewing period. All of the equipment for enterprise and general fund, they're all located down at the wastewater treatment plant at this point. So we will have a 3-day viewing that will be open to the public, and then we will take sealed bids on the 4th day.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions or comments for Craig Gregory? All right, so it appears that we concur with this, and what we would do is follow your recommendation to add this list of surplus items to the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Gregory is going to talk to us about some design and construction standards.
So this is our annual update, Commissioners. We have identified quite a few changes within the standards. We did not want to print the full set of standards. It's a fairly lengthy document that is located on the City of Shelton website. So what we did was just referenced the changed items that we're proposing. So if there is a want or a need to view those, those are available, and they're referenced by number within the standards. So instead of printing the entire document, we highlighted the ones that were identified for change within your packet.
Questions or comments for Craig Gregory?
Not at this point.
I did. I met with Craig earlier today, and I went over several items, and just to make sure that I understood kind of how this list works. And I was impressed by the process that they were using, and that it's just good to have people looking over this and checking this out and seeing how things can be, put forward to help move things along. And so I feel very comfortable with this list. And so, at this moment, are we open to concur to place this on the action agenda? I think we are for May 1st, 2018. Thank you. Every week you just have, it's Craig Gregory again. There you go. And you know what I did? I studied Terry Snitzer's name all week long. I mean, I says, if she's going to, because I saw she was going to speak tonight, and I says, okay, I'm going to get it. So I have several people. And so, Terry Snitzer, I got your name, and anytime you want to speak, I got it, okay? See, I did it okay, didn't I? All right, the phobia is gone about your name. So, and then I found out you're not going to speak tonight. So, anyway, but next time, at least I've got your name down now. All right, Craig, you're going to talk to us about a light.
We had
Item number 5.
with the Washington State DOT on the traffic signals, not only at First and Railroad, but also First and Coda, with the downtown connector project and the roundabout that will be going in very soon. We have been seeing quite a few backups at the First and Railroad and First and Coda lights that are state-owned. We met with them trying to alleviate some of that congestion, hoping that they could do something with their timing. Those lights don't seem to be functioning very well together. Their video detection doesn't seem to be picking up traffic. Could be one issue. They did check on that, made a few minor adjustments. Didn't seem to help a lot. But we have been seeing backups all the way back to ProBuild, and we're a little concerned that if we increase flow of traffic through that intersection at First and Alder, that we may run into some more issues downstream from there. So we did contact WashDOT and ask them if they could take a look at whether the signal at First and Coda was warranted. Basically the same process that we used for Fourth and Railroad. which we ended up identifying that we did not meet any of the warrants for a traffic signal. We did look through that process, and it doesn't look like the signal at First and Coda is warranted either. It is no different than any other intersection downstream from there, from Grove all the way to Neelan, and moving downstream from there, downflow from there. And also moving north through that intersection doesn't seem to work with that signal. When it's on green, the signal at Railroad is red, so moving through that intersection doesn't seem to be working very well. They suggested getting a letter of support from our commission if you agree, and they would take a look at it further, but they wanted that letter of support to identify basically that the city of Shelton was asking for this, not necessarily just the public works director asking for this in their process. So they are taking a look at it they've looked at it over the last couple of weeks and whether it was warranted or not. But would love to hear some thoughts from the three of you on what you think of that concept.
So did they try to synchronize it?
They told us that it was already.
Oh,
But they have some of the same issues we have. They have some aging traffic signal cabinets that maybe don't necessarily sync together. They also have an issue that when we changed Railroad Avenue, they went to a phased approach where they have a protected turn, which also alters the timing so that those two lights basically aren't running the same functions. So it's really difficult to sync those two together so that they are functioning together, because at First and Railroad, you have a protected turn, which would be an arrow, that you don't have at Coda Street.
that's a frustrating light on Coda, it really is, because we either come down Coda or we come down Grove. And when we come down Grove, we sit and wait to go across or to turn. And there's traffic back clear up on First Street
Yeah.
going towards Tozier's, going towards the park. By the time one moves, one changes, then the other one changes the opposite, and we're still stuck.
That
So
is,
I
that is
think
the reason why we want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
WashDOT did tell us that normally cities don't contact them and want to take lights out. They want to add lights, so they found it a little unusual, but they did see the conflict with the two. And the close proximity they have to each other is a real issue also, so.
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, I'm sorry.
You suppose that was put in years ago for Simpson employees to get in and out, or?
I don't, Commissioner Dorsey, I don't know why it would have been installed. I don't know if, that roadway has changed so many times. Before, the highway it turned at Neelan down to Front Street. I don't know if at one time it was at Coda and then it changed to Railroad. So I don't know the history of it, but yeah, for some reason they thought it was warranted at one time. If I had to make a guess at it, I would think that at one time that highway turned at Coda Street. That's why it was there. They just left it as they progressed north. But that's a theory and a guess at this point.
So are we going to ease everybody into this? It's just not going to be gone one morning.
I'm not sure if there is a way to ease anybody into a traffic signal being removed. I think as we saw on 4th and Railroad, you either have it or you don't. And at this point, I think the right thing to do would be to remove it. So, yeah, it would be basically if WashDOT deems it not warranted, it would be probably a day process to remove it, and you just wouldn't have it anymore.
I live on Coda, and I use that light, and since we talked about this, I've gone and just studied it, I've sat there, I've looked at it. I think it will improve traffic flow to remove the light, mainly because of just that one block, and that's the main where most of the traffic comes. I would be in favor of removing that light. So I don't have a problem with that personally, and I use it all the time. And so, is there any other questions or comments?
So right now, they are assessing it?
They are.
Okay.
They're running through their warrant report
Okay.
to see if it is warranted. They're looking at some crash data and some other things at their headquarters, and they are going to get back to us.
Okay.
This certainly would help moving it forward, the letter of support from the commission.
So, do we concur to sign the letter? Okay, so it appears that we concur to place this on the, place the removal of the traffic light at SR3 and Coda Street, and the letter of support on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. Thank you very much. All right, Craig, you're going to talk to us about a latecomers agreement?
So, if you remember back, quite a few months ago, we worked with Washington State Patrol to get a well disconnected, which gave us the opportunity to get $2.25 million worth of loan forgiveness. That was a negotiation with Washington State Patrol. At the time, they thought that they could get their construction done in a much quicker time frame than they did. We originally had some water credits starting on May of 2017. They didn't finish construction until December of 2017, so we did not want to start water credits before they actually got done their end of the deal. So we held off on those. After we got to a point where we were going to start the water credits that we had agreed on, which was 32 months worth of water credits at $600 a month. We had found out that Washington State Patrol didn't know how much their water bill actually was, and it actually only is about $300 a month. So if we take a look at that, we would end up being out about 5 years worth of water credits, which after talking to Terry and the finance team, that would be a burden on them to track that for that long. So what we're proposing is to make a one-time payment of the amount of the total credit, which is $19,200, to finish up what we owe them for the agreement and make that one-time payment to them instead of the ongoing credits for their water bill.
Questions or comments?
So where was that 19,000 coming from?
It will come straight out of the water utility,
Okay.
and there's plenty of
Money.
cash there
Okay.
sitting in the water fund to make that $19,000
All right.
payment.
Well, I think it's a whole lot better than dragging it out 5 years, myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so it appears that we concur to place this item on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. All right, a de-obligation. And again, Craig's going to talk to us about a Basin 3 loan.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, when we signed the contract for Pavetta Brothers to do the construction for the Basin 3 project, that bid was right at about $6 million. We have total funding available to us in grants and direct appropriations totaling about $6.3 million. So there's about a $300,000 gap there that we have for contingencies or overruns. And at this point, the loan portion that we had received back in, I believe it was 2014, that is federal money. And if we take any part of that loan, we will fall under the federal guidelines, which would make this project very difficult to get done. We actually have started that project without de-obligating the loan. That creates a few issues that with the federal requirements, it is Buy America, which means you have to buy American steel, which we have steel in all of our manholes that we are already installing. And at this point, there are plenty of basically pots of money that if we do have cost overruns, we could certainly tap into to make that project whole. The satellite wastewater treatment plant partners, they contribute into a fund. So Washington State Patrol and Corrections both have payments into an I&I project funding source that right now has about $500,000 in it that we could use if we ran into issues and had some overruns. We also, if we get to the end of this project, almost $1 million of this project was transportation related. It was new pavement on roads. So technically, if we did run into some overruns and didn't want to use the partners' money, we certainly could use transportation dollars, either TBD funds, TIF funds, or REAP funds to make up that difference of the paving portion. And I just think looking at the cost of making this a federal project would far outweigh the small amount that we would need to use if we did run into cost overruns on this project. So we are asking to deobligate that loan portion and get through this project with city funds.
And I would step out and take the lead on this and say, yes, I think that's a very good idea.
Especially when we've told our citizens that there's, no, we're not borrowing any money for this project. So we have to make sure that we keep our word on that.
And we are certainly, city staff is committed to getting this project done.
Yeah.
On budget and on time. We have run into, it's been a little bit of a rocky start over the last week and a half. We have had some issues with some potential change orders already, but we're hoping that smooths out a little bit and we get on the right track. But at this point, we are out there doing everything we can do to make sure that this project goes smoothly and is under budget and on time.
Any more questions or comments for Craig? Okay. Okay, so at this time, I think what we want to do is place this item on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. Thank you. Man, you're up again, Craig.
So I am very happy to present this next one to you. We worked very hard for the last about 16 months on a couple of large projects, one of them including Turner Avenue, that we applied for a TIB grant, Transportation Improvement Board grant. We were awarded a portion of what we actually applied for. We did initially apply for the entire road section from 1st to 16th. We were awarded the section between 7th and 16th. That came in at $270,000. We did add a few things to this project that we did have budgeted. The section between Angleside Road and 7th Street is in very poor condition. So we added that on, and also a couple of our residential blocks that we are looking to pave. We actually added on to this contract also 12th Street off of Turner to the south, and also Holly Drive between Turner and 14th Street were additives onto this. And what we did was we wanted to take a look at adding them onto this contract and whether that was going to save us money on those projects instead of having either another contractor do them or our in-house paving program do them. So we did find that they were a little bit cheaper by adding them onto this contract. So if you look at the overall bid amount of $478,163 that was awarded to Northern Asphalt, within that, the grant portion came out to be a total of about $366,000. The Angleside to 7th Street portion was $72,800, and then the additives 1 and 2, which were the residential blocks, ended up being right at around $38,000 for that total of $478,000. That does come out to only be about 43% of the total project. We did tell you that this was 90% funded at the time that we presented it to you. It ended up being, for the portion that was grant funded, about 74% after the higher bid than the engineer's estimate. We have gone back to TIB. They do have a process to ask for additional funds, and they do have a limit up to a certain amount that can be approved without going to their board. So we have done that at this point, not telling them that we weren't going to move forward with this project, but just asking if there's any possibility of getting some additional funding from them, that would be much appreciated, and we would save some of our city funds for future projects. And they are taking a look at that. We actually handed that in today, so we should get an answer in the next couple of days, whether they will give us, I believe on this project, it's around $40,000 of additional funds. So we're waiting to hear back from them, but we would like to move forward with the contract with Northern Asphalt for the Turner Street project, also the Schedule B portion, which is Angleside to 7th, and additives 1 and 2, 12th Street and Holly Drive.
Questions or comments for Craig Gregory? I would just say that, on these things where we've been batting about 1,000% on almost everything we've touched, that once in a while you're going to find something where you're going to add something or you're going to do something. And, I just really appreciate the way you run that department. And I think that, you can't bat 1,000 every day.
We're working on it.
Yeah. So I think we need to get this project done. So we will concur to place this on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. Okay, next is the Downtown Connector Project contract. Craig Gregory again.
So a little better news on this project, a much larger project. The bid came in from Wanch Construction, was the low bidder at $4.33 million. That is slightly over the engineer's estimate by about $300,000. But as we presented to you a few weeks back, we did get above and beyond the TIB grant that was $3.33 million. We did get an additional $1 million from our state representatives out of the supplemental transportation budget of $1 million, which put us up to $4.33 million, so just slightly less than the total low bid amount. So we are looking at a project that is very close to being 100% funded through grants. So we certainly enjoyed getting the news of the extra $1 million, which saves us our city funds to go back into those accounts so we can use them for future projects.
Fantastic.
And that's still going from Mickey's to roughly Skipper?
Yes, that is Mickey's to C Street at Skipworth, and that is the full paving, landscaping, illumination, stormwater, some sewer upgrades for some manholes that are in the traveled lanes. Yeah, that is a full project. So we are happy to get that one off the ground and get it going. Should see construction likely starting sometime mid to late June is what we anticipate.
So you said almost fully funded. Do you know how much possibly there would be on top of the money that we got?
You're missing a very small portion.
Okay, like a couple thousand?
More than 2,000.
More than 2,000, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You can give me those numbers later.
What I do appreciate is seeing the big signs, the plywood signs going up, explaining like on the Basin 3 project, that it lets the people know where their money is going and what they're doing. And so I think it's good to put those signs up.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so we concur to place this on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. All right, next is, again, Craig Gregory talking to us about grant applications.
So we do have a presentation for you tonight, Mayor and Commissioners, before we get into this further discussion after just talking about some major projects that we have going on. One thing that we want to do is we want to continue to move Shelton forward. So the discussion after this presentation is really going to be, what do you want to see for Shelton moving forward, and what kind of projects do you want to get behind and see for the 2019 construction season and the 2018 funding season, because that is coming upon us very quickly. TIB grants are due in August, so it is just around the corner. So if we want to go and take a look at some additional projects that we will be starting construction in 2019, we would like to hear your point of view on those.
Okay, so we're going to watch a movie?
As soon as Chuck gets us up and running, we will.
All right.
So just kind of an overview, want to take a look at kind of where we've been, where we're at right now, and then kind of our process moving forward. We haven't been real good in the past about developing road rating programs and sidewalks. So that is something we would like to talk about tonight also. So really just an overview of kind of where we've been and where we're headed. So the major projects that we're looking at, we just discussed. We've got about $900,000 worth of paving on the Basin 3 project that is 100% grant funded. That equals out to be about 43 total blocks within that Basin 3 project. So really all of north downtown Shelton, everything north of Alder Street. Here's a map of what will be paved with that Basin 3 project. So all of north downtown Shelton, North Cliff from the bottom of the hill up to Poplar at the top of the hill where it meets the new pavement of the North Cliff project, and also the entire North Cliff development of Elizabeth, Sydney, James, and Roy. And then we just got done talking about the Turner Street project. You can see the funding that we had and the additional city funds that it's going to take to get that entire project done. Downtown Connector project, I won't spend a lot of time on, we just talked about, but you can see all of the different funding sources and how we got that project, if not 100% funded, very close. The sewer fund contributing a small amount for some manhole replacement. Our partners, Mason County PUD 3, Mason Transit Authority, and Mason Conservation District with their contributions, and then a very small city portion. And Kathy, this will answer your question with design and construction. Looks like we're going to be into that project about $117,000 upon completion. With the city storm fund putting in a fairly large contribution to that project. There are some very big storm issues that we have. I think all of us have driven up the hill and hit that large creek that runs down the right side as you're driving up. We're getting rid of that. A rain garden at 8th Street to take care of that stormwater. So some very large storm improvements. We've got open pipes and drains that lead directly into our creek systems with no treatment. So we are doing some treatment on the stormwater before it does hit our creeks and end up out into Oakland Bay.
So on the last one, if I could just interject for a second, what it appears is that $117,000 compared to the total cost of the project is, instead of 10% grant, 90% loan, that is a 97% grant and a 3% loan. Even though it's not a loan, it's coming out of our budget. But that's 117,000 translates to about 3% of the project.
And this is total project. That included design of this project, which ended up being around $350,000. So when you look at this entire project, that is a very small amount to contribute to a project of this size.
Thank you.
And good math if you did that just now.
That's what I do.
So looking at our in-house paving of residential roads, this year we are going out to bid for our residential roads. We have identified 20 blocks of residential streets that will be paved this year, total cost of around $188,000. We will be going to bid for this shortly, so we'll get a cost back. But looking at the in-place asphalt prices from all of our other projects, I think we've got a pretty good handle on what this is going to cost us when we do get bids back. So that will be going to bid shortly with construction sometime midsummer of those 20 blocks. A little hard to see. You might be able to see a little better in your handout of where those blocks, all of those blocks are located. They are scattered somewhat all over town, which, to be completely honest with you, isn't the most efficient way to do business. But we'll talk about that a little later on in this presentation of kind of what we're doing to fix that issue that we have now.
Are we talking paving or are we talking chip sealing?
No, we are talking
Actual
3
pave-
inches of asphalt, either fully reconstructed or overlays.
So we're looking on Holly Street, actual blacktop in there.
It will be 3 inches of asphalt, correct.
Okay.
And some storm improvements. There are some utility extensions also up there to a vacant lot, but we'll get into that also a little later on.
Okay.
So one thing that we have heard over the last few months is, why are we doing some of these large projects instead of doing all residential paving? And as the mayor pointed out, our contribution to that major project is very small. You look at all of the blocks that we're doing through the Basin 3 project and also the downtown connector. One thing to point out, I think, maybe just to more educate the public than anything, is this map that you're looking at here has all of our federally designated routes. So to apply for grant funding, it has to be one of these colored roads on this map. It's not like we can just go out and say, we want to pick road X and apply for a grant. That's not the way it works. You have to be on this colored map to actually apply for grant funding. We are very, very fortunate that this map has a lot of those federally designated roads. You look at other cities, and they may have just a few. We have a large quantity.
Bob's shaking his head, so I think he's been here before.
Yeah. So we are very fortunate that we have this many that we can pick from that could be potential projects now or in the future. So that is just a little point of clarification that when we are applying for grants, this is the map we're working off of, and then we have to really define what that project looks like and see if it's actually warranted to apply for a grant. So one thing I mentioned earlier is we have never had a road rating or sidewalk rating program or process. That is one thing that within Public Works we are going to fix. We have identified roads basically off of just a conversation of what needs to be done. What are the biggest maintenance issues that we have right now? What are you spending money on? And it's always been a conversation really with the Public Works Superintendent to identify those roads. I don't think that that is the best process. You end up with quite a few roads scattered all over the place. You don't get much for economy of scale, where if you identify, a certain amount of roads that are failing within a certain area, and maybe taking areas at a time of Shelton and really trying to work on those on an annual basis instead of spreading them all over the place. But really more to define what roads need to be done and what roads need attention, and really more for the public to really see an ongoing list of where are you at? Where is your street at on this list? We had quite a few comments that, we got the 20 blocks out there to the public, and the comments that we heard is, why not my road? My road's just as bad as the other one. And to be completely honest with you, I don't have an answer at this point. My answer is we are working on it. We are working with one of our transportation partners to actually develop that program. We are going to bring on an intern to do some of that work this summer. And hopefully by mid to late summer, we will have an actual list of roads that are rated from highest to lowest priority, and also our sidewalk system in addition to that. So, and certainly interrupt me if you do have any questions. I would be happy to answer any of them as we kind of move along here.
I think that the citizens would really appreciate seeing a map like that. I know I would.
Least of all, a list,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
We have a list, we've made many lists in the past, right? So
Yes,
we
we
had
have.
priority lists and stuff, but you have to reevaluate those things as time
Right.
goes on. And so I think it is important in this discussion that we do balance. We have to balance whether we get full funding for a project. It's very tempting if we have full funding for projects to put all of our effort into getting these things done, because that's almost unheard of. But at the same time, you have to service the needs of the citizens in their neighborhoods to at least know that their neighborhoods and their streets are important too. So I think we have to have the conversation. I'm looking forward to the 7-person council to bring some of their thoughts in on this also when we formulate a matrix like that.
So I am going to skip along just a little bit past a few of these things that are consideration. I just skipped past a couple of slides, but really wanted to take a look at what is considered when we're looking at residential paving and the things that go into that, because I don't think that a lot of people understand when we look at paving a residential street, there's a lot more that goes into that assessment than just, is my road in terrible condition? There are things like surface water. Is there storm drainage in the area, or are we going to have to construct storm drain? The type of treatment, is it just a standard overlay, or is it a full depth where we're digging out a foot of material and importing material in? Alignment and right-of-way, is that road set in the right place? And utilities, one thing that we looked at that we had some major issues with here just most recently. I know the mayor is going to cringe when I say this, but the sewer line that we ran out Lake Boulevard, that we told everyone that it was needed, we had to put it in. We have customers that want to hook up to that line at this point, and we can't hook them up. It is buried under a brand new road with no laterals off of that sewer line. So with a 5-year no-cut ordinance, we don't want to cut into that brand new road to service one sewer lateral. But unfortunately, that is something that we have not thought of in the past, that we are thinking of these days.
Would there have been enough room on the side of the road in
Yes.
the bank to put a sewer line in, right?
Yes.
And then we wouldn't have had the problem of worrying
Yes.
about digging the road up.
There's really no sense in going back in the
There isn't.
past.
No,
You know,
there
it
isn't,
is
but
what it is. We are where we are, and that is an unfortunate situation, which, as we all know, we just, certain things do happen. And
So
so,
the point
we're doing things different now.
So the point of this conversation is we did identify a couple of vacant lots on Holly Drive and a couple on some of our other residential streets. We are going in and putting water and sewer stub outs off to the edge of the road so that we can connect those without cutting into those new roadways. So that is something that we have thought about and we are doing with in-house projects at this point. So back to your point, Mayor, of not necessarily focusing just on big projects, but also servicing those residential blocks. So back in August of 2016, the commission voted on a split of the TBD money. And we have been trying to do our best to abide by this split. I think we are fairly close to what we agreed upon, which was 65% to match for local projects, so large scale projects, 30% to residential streets, and 5% to our sidewalks and ADA ramps. So this year I can tell you that we brought in about $530,000 in the TBD funds. And if you look at that, the $188,000 is slightly over the 30% of that. I think the 30% ends up being around $159,000, if I remember right. So we're slightly over that, just a few percentage points over that. And then much lower on the actual grant match portion of 65%. So we're pretty happy with where we've gotten to. So looking forward in the larger discussion, just anticipating where we're at with funding at this point. We're at the end of 2018. We are looking at having a balance in our transportation funds of about $1.7 million. That will be reduced by a small portion of $471,000. So you're looking at having somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.2 million available for 2019 construction season. That is not including anything that you will receive in 2019. So if you take a look at the TBD funds that would come in during that construction season that would be available, another $500,000 or so, another around 70 to 100,000 in REAP funds, most likely in 2019, and then any of your transportation impact fees that you would receive in, which we did not anticipate any transportation impact fees for this year, even though we do have some very large projects that are looking at coming. But at this point, we are looking at having somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 million available for projects in the 2019 construction season.
Exciting.
So that leads us into the projects that we would like you to take a look at. These are the ones that we have worked with our consultant, Steve Gorchester, that has been helping us through the grant process and been very successful in identifying projects. So the few projects, the major projects that he came up with for the 2018 funding season was a project that would provide connectivity to the Downtown Connector project, so from Alder Street to Railroad on 7th, and then extending from 7th Street out to the city limits, which would be new pavement, ADA ramps, and what we would propose is a sidewalk on the south side of Railroad from 12th Street out to the city limits, which would connect up to, I believe it's Pacific Court at the city limits. So we are looking at that. And funding level design, which we went through in 2017, I'm sorry, for all of these projects that we got funded for this year. We did do a funding level design and then actually moved forward, if you remember, with the Downtown Connector project and fully designed that before we had actual grant funding, which improved our position for that grant cycle. So we're looking at that project, total design ending up being about $50,000. City portion of that to construct ADA ramps throughout the project, and the match would be around $150,000, and anticipated grant funding of around $400,000. The other project would be an intersection improvement at Wallace, Nealon, and 13th Street. Steve Gorchester did identify this as one that could potentially be funded through Transportation Improvement Board. Not a likely candidate, but a decent candidate. It does have some issues with traffic flow through. If you think about that, that's the four-way stop that we have. That project, fully designed, would be about $150,000 in design funding and an anticipated total construction cost of about $1.5 million with grant portion of just over $1 million and city portion of about $450,000. So one thing I would like you to think about also when we talked about the total amount of funding available, there are some projects that are needed that aren't fundable. And this last one that we identify, Steve Gorchester did tell us that it is very unlikely that it would be funded. It already has a traffic signal that is functioning, not very well, but it is functioning at this point, and didn't think that it would be a candidate to be funded. So this is one of those ones that we look at and say, is it needed? Yes, we've identified something that we think is very needed. That is the Wallace, Nealon, and Spring Road intersection. If you've ever been up there during times of school, either getting in or out, traffic flow is terrible through that intersection. And with the expansion of the high school, we anticipate that it only gets worse. There are some other projects that are slated to be done up there. I don't know what time frame we're looking at, but there are some other projects in that area. That housing development that is out across from the high school, Parsley Sage, has certainly been developing rather quickly. So this intersection doesn't look like it is going to get any better anytime soon. So this is one that we look at that we would suggest using city funds and then partnering with some of those folks that are going to be paying traffic impact fees in that area to develop a project and actually get something done, but likely not being grant funded. So about $150,000 for design and another 1.5 in construction.
Not a roundabout there.
That is the proposal.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So this is something that I've talked to some other mayors in some other cities and whatnot, and some other public works people and stuff, and this is kind of outside of our box. I don't know that we've ever done this, but let's just think for a second that maybe we have a project that we pretty much no chance of getting grant money for. That's what you're saying, Dick Slade. Is that the $1.5 million one?
That's correct.
Well, let's just imagine that what we did is said, okay, we want to do it, but let's not borrow the money now and just do it this year. Let's just take $500,000 out of our budget in 2019, set it aside, try 2020, another $500,000, and then we do the project in 2021, and we pay for it in the attempting to save or set money aside or plan, and, rather than just, we got to have it, but we can forecast out, take a look and see, and this would probably be an ideal one, because I like the 100% grant-funded ones. Those are the ones that are really exciting to me. And anytime there's no grant funding, then I say we can do it and we can mix it in, but I would easily see the possibility of doing like we do when we buy cars and stuff, possibly say, this is important, but we're going to budget it out over, and if somehow more money comes in or something, and we can always circumvent that process. But if you don't save, there are cities that are doing this a lot more. They're saving that money for future projects. And we've never had the luxury, I don't think, of doing this, and that this is one of those things that I think isn't that bad of an idea.
So Mayor, if you look at this, that is why we gave you the funding that we have now and what's going to be available to us in 2019. Mm-hmm. And I think that is actually what we've done. We've been collecting TBD funds since the middle of 2016. And fortunately, with working with our state representatives and getting that extra $1 million and not having to spend that on the Downtown Connector project, that is really what we've been doing. So we've been saving these funds for a couple of years, and that's why we've identified this list. This list could be fully funded with city funds that are available to us in 2019 without taking out any loans, without anticipating some grant funding, but really identifying some projects that we feel fairly confident that could get grant funded, but not taking out loans, using the Transportation Benefit District funds, TIF funds, and REAP funds that are available to us already, that you could fund all three of these projects if you wish to do so.
Any other questions or comments for Craig Gregory?
What is the anticipated time for the high school to be completed? Do we have a guess on that?
I don't know if Mark can answer that better than I can. I don't have a sense of it.
Couple years?
Was it?
When are they going to start?
Was it fall of 19 they were supposed to be?
Fall of 19?
Yeah. So we are meeting with the high school consultant tomorrow to discuss their traffic and impact fees. So that will be a discussion for them. They have presented us with a traffic analysis. Right now, their traffic impact fees are scheduled to be around $200,000. So that certainly would be something that we would put, that we didn't identify as funding in that last slide. But that is something that we anticipate bringing in as that project moves forward. That would be something that would be located in close proximity to the contributor, which I think we feel as staff is important for any of those projects that are paying in a large sum of money in traffic impact fees, that we do try to do something in close proximity to their project to improve traffic flow. That's not a requirement that we have with the size of city that we are, but that is, I think, a priority of staff, and I would love to hear some input from the commission on their feelings on that. But, you know, some other large projects, the hospital that's looking at expanding and looking at traffic flow in and out of there. So that is a priority of ours, and would love to hear your thoughts on what that looks like for traffic impact fees.
Well, one thought I had is that, you know, just because we're projecting that we've got this $2 million to spend, what you're looking for here is actually for us to place these 3 projects on the action agenda.
That's
okay?
correct.
Now, you know, and so that takes up, we're projecting to bring this in, you know, and we're moving fairly fast on these things, and it's good to move fast, you know, but it's also good to, you know, make sure, you know, we do have reserves, you know, but I guess I'm always, the one deal is we've been doing such a good job in moving in such a, you know, positive, getting projects done and funded properly and everything, that there's always that little fear in me, probably like maybe we ought to not, maybe just bite off 2 as a guarantee for in 2019 rather than 3, and this one was no grant funding. I mean, if I was to possibly, you know, put a pause button, that would be the one I would do. But
sure,
I'm only one voice here, and so I don't know. It looks like you're asking that we go forward on all these. That one, there's no grant funding available, and so I tend to probably not be, you know, if I was to say no, it'd be on that one.
And Mayor, I'm not asking that you make a decision on this, and I'm certainly not advocating that we do all 3 of these projects.
I was just reading the fine print down here. It says, put this on the action agenda for May 1st.
Right.
Really, it's to see the direction that the commission would like to move in, and whether they would like to start design of these projects and then look for grant funding, and looking really at that Spring Road intersection that doesn't have grant funding available. And maybe that's something that we say we're going to fund that one, and then if we don't get grant funding for the 4-way stop at 13th and Wallace, maybe we hold off on that one until that does become a project that can be grant funded.
That doesn't have to be done as the school is, when the high school gets finished, that one does not, that roundabout does not have to be done at that time?
It doesn't have to be done. I think it certainly would be something that our motoring public would appreciate. If we, and also the school, if we were to want to be a good partner with the school, that would be constructed in that 2019 season, and hopefully finished up sometime around the same time that the high school was finished up and their, you know, major renovations were done. But that is, like I said, completely staff's thought, and really we're just looking for some direction from the commission, the 3 of you, to really what you would like to see us do moving forward.
I have an idea. Why don't we table this for a week, okay, and let us think about this conversation, and also we'll be talking with different people about this, and I might be asking a few more questions. A lot of times they wonder, why don't you ask the question now? Well, because it's not in my brain right now. This is just, I know that we've been moving really fairly quickly on what we're doing here, but I think that I wouldn't mind another week or 2 to think about. This is not anything we have to do right now.
That would be great.
So I would entertain a motion, unless my 2 fellow commissioners want to just put this on the action agenda and go for these 3 projects. I would like to think about this for a couple of weeks. So that's what
Further
I would
discussion would be
probably
great.
say isn't a bad idea. So is there a
Totally agree.
motion to do that? Is that what we want? Do we want a motion? No.
No.
No, we
Question
just,
for Craig.
okay.
Now, actually, it's not just for you, it's just a question. That corner at Wallace, Nealon, and Spring Road, that intersection, I mean, on that corner also is probably where, what's gonna happen there? The Y, right?
Well, that is not set in stone at this
No.
point. We are discussing that, but I did mention future projects up in that area, not identifying one in particular, but certainly we are looking at, like I said, that housing development that's starting to fill up and,
Right.
and potential of some other projects up in that area.
Okay.
That you are correct.
Right,
But that's gonna add some
traffic,
traffic impact there too.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think identifying the ones that actually are coming, and certainly that expansion to the high school and that increased one grade level up in that area, whether it be at the high school or the junior high, is certainly going to affect traffic in that area and flow through that intersection.
Okay.
All right, so what do you guys want to pass this forward this time or table for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to concur to come back in a couple of weeks and have more questions. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for item number 10. All right, next you get a break because we're going to have our police chief come up and talk to us now about some police activities.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and thank you, Craig, for giving me a little time in there. I appreciate it. Just like the mayor gave his plug, I was going to give a little kudos tonight. Mark Ziegler, the president of Graduation Matters Shelton, and I were over at their fundraiser tonight for the after-school program for Graduation Matters. It was a very successful event. A lot of folks had some fun and had some dinner. And I'm guessing when I left, they told me they raised probably about $6,000 for the after-school program, so it was a good.
Good.
And that goes right into the schools. I briefed you a little bit on the potential for more SROs, school resource officers at the schools. And we're looking at 2 different steps in this. This is the first step tonight. In other words, if this goes forward as we progress, this is the first contract that will come into your hands. And this one is a final draft. It's missing a couple minor items such as the hours that they will be there. This was agreed upon, but we're working with the legal to make sure that that's finalized. Basically, this contract puts into place that we will bring 2 existing officers. It doesn't add any officers to the police department. These are guys and gals are working on their time off on overtime. The school district agreeing to pay the overtime cost for 2 full-time Shelton police officers for a period of about 6 hours a day. And right now, they've been doing this, and it's been about 7:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon. It's been very well received at the schools with the kids and the staff. So what I'm doing now is just giving you the preview of this, answering any questions you have on it. Like I said, doesn't add any officers to this Shelton Police Department. We will be funding the officers for equipment, training, safety equipment, and vehicles and fuel during this time. The school district will be paying their salary and benefits package. And I'm happy to answer any questions you've got on this, and I have copies for you if you don't have it.
And this is till the end of this school year.
Correct.
And then the next
And if
new contract for if we go on.
If the school board and our commission or council at that time decides that they'd like to move forward with full-time school resource officers, then that'll have to be in a separate contract and discussed at a separate point, and funding mechanisms for those put in place.
Well, I'm very much in favor of this, and I'll tell you why. It's because when we had our last school shooting, where the country was quite alarmed about this, you, the next day, went out and started trying to figure out what we might need. You were proactive on that, and you need credit for that because you didn't sit around and wait for somebody to give you a suggestion. You went out and you started knocking on doors, and I think that this is an excellent cooperation between the school district and the city, and it appears that the funding is not a major, I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to the city of Shelton. There will be some money.
No, sir.
But,
I'd
so
like to
that's,
take all the credit, Mayor, thank you, but we've had a great relationship with the school district thus far, and I think us having regular meetings with Dr. Apostle and his staff, all of us were on the same page with this. It wasn't just me.
So these officers will be working on their time off.
Correct.
There'll be some overtime. their vacations and choose, I don't know, how's that gonna work? No, just
I'm
time
not,
off?
I'm not allowing any vacations for, no, I'm just kidding. Basically, we put out a schedule, and it'll be officers rotating because their days off do rotate with their schedule. And they have filled out a calendar from now until the end of the school year of volunteering to
Okay.
work on their time off.
Okay, very good.
Any
Don't
other,
want them to get extra tired or burnt out or anything.
This is on their days off. They're not, there is no holding over from a graveyard shift and going out to the school and working all day. That's not acceptable.
Okay,
These are
right.
time
right.
off.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions for our police chief?
I'm just glad that we're kind of taking the lead on this around this area. Our kids need to be safe. Safe as possible.
Yes.
So it appears that we concur to place this on the action agenda for May 1st, 2018. Thank you very much. All right, that moves us into the action agenda portion of our meeting. And the first item, which we heard about last week, is going to be presented to us, and it looks like have a second reading from Craig Gregory is going to talk about this.
So, Mayor, Commissioners, just one change to this that was identified. We heard some feedback from the public over the last couple of weeks. We did have a section in this that identified a time frame when the Sidewalk Cafe furniture would need to be removed from October to April. We have elected to take that portion out of this. And actually, if you look at number 3, bullet point number 3 of the ordinance, I think that gives us enough authority over the sidewalk cafes that if we do see, our worry was there was going to be things that were left out on our sidewalks that would not be in good repair. And we wouldn't have a mechanism to actually get those off of the sidewalk or get the business owner to clean that up. But I certainly think with number 3, it gives us that mechanism, but doesn't also penalize a good steward of the right-of-way and make them remove their furniture off of the right-of-way if it is in good repair, in decent shape. So that was one change to this that we didn't have in last week or 2 weeks ago, the briefing. So we
So
would
if they
like.
have nice wood furniture and they can keep it out year-round.
Correct. That is, I mean, and the example is Smoke and Mo's.
Right.
They have been out there, and we did hear from them, and it was something that we certainly want to be able to work with the public and the business owners. They actually just most recently took their wooden furniture off of location and took it back and refinished it. They don't necessarily have a lot of places to store something like that, and that was a consideration that we had moving forward. So if you do have somebody like that, like I said, a good steward of not only their equipment and furniture out on the right-of-way, that we certainly don't want to penalize them and penalize the public, not saying that we have the best weather, October through April, but you never know. Might get a nice sunny day where somebody might want to sit out there in their raincoat. But we certainly don't want to penalize them or make an undue burden on them. So we
I
did
think that's a
remove
good
that
point.
portion.
October always seems to be nice.
Is,
They're about the middle of it usually.
has anybody signed up for public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay, so we did hear from the public through conversations you've had. So are there any more questions or comments for Craig Gregory? Seeing none, what I would do at this point is ask for a second and final reading of the ordinance number 1920-0418.
Ordinance number 1920-0418, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending chapters 12.20 of the Shelton Municipal Code relating to right-of-way use code.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I will move to adopt ordinance number 1920-0418, an ordinance amending the Shelton Municipal Code 12.20 right-of-way use code, establishing the process and conditions by which the sidewalk cafe operations will be permitted.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? The ordinance passes, the motion passes. Okay, item number 2 is going to be presented to us tonight by our interim city manager, Vicki Look.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. A few months ago, we came to you and notified you that our insurance plans through the Association of Washington Cities were being terminated at the end of 2017. We formed the committee, reviewed our different options for medical plans through other vendors, and came back, and the best plans offered were still with the AWC, but they were plans that required a higher deductible and a higher out-of-pocket cost. Through negotiations with our unions and guilds, and also for the non-represented, the city agreed to create a health reimbursement plan, which is it's a health savings plan, and set that up for the employees. The only deposits that can be made are through the employer. Employees cannot contribute to the fund themselves. Required a resolution passed by the City Commission to set that account up with that vendor. So we're here tonight presenting Resolution 11210418, which sets up the account with the vendor, and we agreed to contribute to the health savings plan for the employees to offset that the out-of-pocket cost and the deductible, and because it did go up considerably. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
First and second, Commissioner McDowell, do we have anybody signed up for public comment on this?
We do not.
Okay, so now questions or comments for Vicki Look?
How does that work? So, person has their insurance. Is this for something catastrophic or major that they would?
The people that are signed up for the Health 250 plan, most of our employees that are not on the high deductible are on the Health 250 or the
Okay.
Kaiser plan, which is similar with about the same sort of premiums and deductibles. So I think the deductible, you know, and I didn't bring that information down with me, but I think that probably it's $250 that's deductible, and then of course the out-of-pocket cost may be more in the area of $3,000 or so for, you know, the cap on full family, that sort of thing. So the $75 that the city committed to, depending on the employee and their dependents, the city pays up to $14.75 for a full family. If they're not utilizing the funds and there's funds left underneath that much, then the city will contribute up to $75 into the health savings account for the employee.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Vicki Look? Hearing none, I would like to ask for a first reading of the resolution, please.
Resolution number 1121-0418, a resolution authorizing the establishment of a health reimbursement arrangement, voluntary employee beneficiary association, HRA VIVA plans.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve Resolution 1121-0418, a resolution of the City of Shelton authorizing the establishment of health reimbursement arrangement, voluntary employees beneficiary association plan.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on our action agenda is our last action agenda item, I believe, and that's going to be about our building codes, services, contracts, and Mark Ziegler is going to tell us about that.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, excuse me. I'm bringing to you tonight contracts with 3 building code consultants, Clarity Consulting, Townsend Associates, and Code Pros. The City of Shelton asked for statements of qualifications for these building code services back in February. These 3 consultants, as well as 2 others, submitted their qualifications by the March 14th deadline. Staff ranked all 5 of the consultants that submitted, and these 3 came out on top. With the approval of their contracts, these consultants would be utilized to provide plan review and possible inspections to supplement city staff. We're seeing quite an uptick in especially commercial activity with the recent schools and other projects coming through, and this is in order to assist us in some of these larger projects that staff might not have the experience in, but also keep review times to a level that that these projects, would anticipate to get moving and meet their construction deadlines. These will be on-call services, so staff would determine the best and most reasonable contract consultant to utilize at that time per project. The consultants, fees are all based on the project itself. So they would be paid out of the plan review fees or the permit fees that are paid associated with the project specifically.
At this point, is anybody signed up for public comment?
We have no one so far.
Okay, so is there any more questions or comments about this issue?
As we discussed, I think 2 weeks ago, I just wanted to have you tell the people what percentages does the contractor get versus what the city gets to keep?
Well, it varies per contract and per project.
Right.
So, for example, one consultant is at 45% for a residential project for plan review. Another consultant is at 70%. So we obviously would pick the consultant that's providing that project at a 45% level.
Right.
So it really depends on the value of the project and the type of the project. One consultant, Townsend Associates, up to $1 million is an hourly fee at $80 an hour. Another consultant, Code Pros, is 70% of the plan review fee there. So we would, what staff would do is we would work with all 3 of them, estimate the project cost and what it would cost the city to provide those services. They all have really similar turnaround times. They're all in the typical in the $1 million range. They're all about 15-day turnaround time for a first review. And then we would obviously pick the most advantageous consultant to the city at that time and move forward.
Did you say that they would be in here 1 day a week or
No, these all would be off-site.
off-site? Okay.
Yep. We have
It's
the
a
ability-
support for our city services.
Correct. We actually, in our RFP, or RFQ, we asked for consultants that could respond within about an hour. The city of Shelton were located within about 60 minutes because we wanted that response time.
Right.
So actually, the consultants, one is in Olympia, one is in Allen, and one's in Olalla. So they have the ability to come in within the next day or 2 and pick up plans if we had hard copies, or we will accept electronic plans. So they can be emailed directly to the consultant. They can do the review, send them back out, and they don't ever have to come into the Civic Center.
Out there in cyberspace.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, are we ready for a motion to approve these contracts?
I move to approve the contracts with Clarity Consulting, Townsend and Associates, and Code Pros for building code services and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Now we are into administration reports. And so, Mark Ziegler is going to talk to us by permitting update here.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. As we're in the theme of building permits, I wanted to give a little update on where we are year-to-date compared to 2017. In 2018, we've had 81 total permits submitted as of April 13th.
How many?
81.
And that's for this year.
2018, as of April 13th, 81 total permits. Last year, in 2017, there was 105 as of April 13th. In 2018, we've had 4 single-family residences submit. In 2017, there was 4 single-family residences and one duplex. So a little bit behind, but bigger projects. As I said, we've seen 2 major school projects, 3 or 4 other school projects that would be major, I guess, projects if we weren't seeing a new elementary school, a significant upgrade and renovation at the high school. We've seen a submittal for a new McDonald's, and we've had a number of pre-sub conferences for additional commercial projects as well. One thing we've talked about is turnaround time, and April 3rd we had a public speaker come in and talk about turnaround times for their projects, and I did want you to know that project has been released, the permit has been put out to the applicant, but every project is different. We try our best to get as quick turnaround times as we can. We have a number of projects that take significant amount of review, and it really depends on the quality of the application that we get in front of us. That particular project, we were working on that from June of 17. We exchanged no fewer than 33 emails and numerous phone calls with either the architect, one of 3 architects that worked on the project, as well as the owner. So our staff is diligent in working with our applicants, trying to get their timelines set forth. We're doing our best with the resources we have available, and we're certainly open and welcome to working with anybody that wants to come through our doors and talk to us about these projects. One of the questions there was losing a license. There was no evidence of that. We asked for some type of evidence from LCB or somebody like that could give us that, and we would try to meet those deadlines if that was all in consideration, and it was the building permit coming out. So we're doing our best to get those out as soon as we can. Hopefully these school projects and these commercial projects, we'll get those off our desk, at least as far as review, and then we'll have the inspection time frame to consider. So it's important now, and I think we'll start scheduling some public information with our communications officer about how to apply for a permit, when's the proper time to apply for a permit. Everybody wants their permit tomorrow. The problem is when we have 81 permits in the queue, or so this year, obviously everybody's can't be tomorrow. So there's pre-planning. There's staff that have pre-sub meetings every Thursday that applicants can come in, meet with everybody from Public Works, Planning, Building, and Fire to plan their project to the best of their abilities, and that really makes it a much more streamlined process when they know all the information up front before they submit their application. So we encourage people to take advantage of that process whenever possible.
All right. That's exciting. Thank you very much, Mark Ziegler.
Thanks, appreciate it.
I have a question for Mark. What's the timeline on the new McDonald's?
It's up to the contractor. We're still under review. We should have that out within the next, I'd say a little over a week is probably when building will be reviewed, but they will have some resubmittal. That's part of the process. Is a lot of the times there's resubmittal to the design, so that'll go back out to the architect. They'll resubmit to anything that was missing within the plans, and then it'll be up to the architect when they want to, or excuse me, the contractor when they want to start their project.
And the Starbucks?
We have no submittal from Starbucks.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Mark Ziegler? As the hour is slipping away, my time to go to bed is getting real close. I'm doing the best I can. So next up is Craig Gregory again. He's going to talk to us about some residential paving.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, we have had quite a bit of conversation about transportation and our residential paving program, identifying some weaknesses that we do have in not rating our roadways. But you did have some citizens that came into the last commission meeting, and we have heard from quite a few of those, and would really like to just get some direction from the commission on how you would like to move forward and handle that, with the understanding that, as Mark just stated, everybody wants their permit tomorrow. Everybody also wants their street paved. We do have projects going really all over town. So the argument that this is in close proximity to another paving project literally could be spoken for anybody in Shelton this year. And we did identify some of those things that we really need to take a look at. It's not quite as easy as just saying, we're going to go pave a street, as most people would like to think. We did hear from a couple of citizens that said that's a very short chunk of roadway. It's over 200 feet long, which an average standard block is around 220 feet. So it literally is a block of paving. And there's a bunch of things to take a look at and consider, which we listed before, whether it's utilities, roadway condition, subgrade condition, but really would like to get some direction from the commission on whether you would like to see us move forward with something on that roadway, or assess that for the 2019 paving season as we look forward, or move forward with our road rating program to see if it actually rates to be paved.
Well, I have a comment about that, and is we have on, I think still on the books, we still have the LID agreement kind of, we don't use it much, but I think that, speaking generally, not about this project, because I don't want those people all getting real mad at me, but generally speaking, if somebody has a section of road right by their house that they want paved sooner than later, the LID project gets the community involved, they chip in a little bit of money, the city comes and pays a little bit of money, and I think that is, I don't think that process is necessarily bad. I don't think we do it very much, but I think that would be a first step, is to have a refined LID project thing. So if you have a group of people that want their road paved, well, we have a process right here. If you pay this amount of money, you would be put higher on the list than people that didn't want to be part of that. I think. Now, I don't know, if that's something you thought about, or.
And we have done that, Mayor, over the last few years, not necessarily with roads, but a few alleys that we have citizens, business owners have wanted paved, and we have worked with them through an LID, and one in particular that we actually took donations from the property owners that they paid for the material. We went in and did the work. Mm-hmm. So that certainly has been done, and that's certainly an avenue that we could take a look at in the future, certainly.
So that's my idea. I don't know, Mr. Dorsey, you've been a builder your entire life, so you should have some input on this.
Not much asphalt, though.
Oh.
But, yeah, I think, I spoke with Craig during the week, and I think that, even though there is a good point up there, that we need to get it on the list in maybe 2019. If it's not on the 2018 list, let's, get that established, get that map drawn out, and
Something they
get
can
it
look
on there.
forward to having done.
The, like you mentioned earlier, it's rated by how much maintenance, basically, how much money we spend on a certain road that requires, okay, let's fix this, and we're not gonna be spending this much money here anymore. And, I don't know where they are rated, but, I would look that direction. Or, if they wanna donate money, I mean, that's great.
That would just be for the asphalt, right? And then the city would pave that.
That's how we have done it in the past.
Okay.
That's correct.
And this isn't to excuse us from not paving certain roads, but, as I travel around, like, downtown Seattle or Tacoma or other fairly large cities, you go a few blocks off main roads and you find unpaved alleys or no sidewalk. I mean, you find it all over. I mean, it's not just a Shelton issue. But I think when citizens get a petition signed, or when they come forward and they want to speak about something, I think it deserves our attention, and we then have to respond to it, I think, in a professional manner. And so we've got a few ideas here, and I think that we will continue to talk about that. And again, I would say that the LID process is not necessarily a bad process if somebody really wants to get something done. So did you want more input than that?
That is enough information for me. I appreciate it, and thank you for all of your time tonight.
All right, now, do we have anything from our interim city manager, Vicki Look?
Well, I just wanted to comment that our recruiter for the city manager's position is in town, and we have several people meeting with him over the next couple days, and so we're kicking it off, and lots of stuff will be coming up really soon. And I think that's it for us tonight.
That's it? All right, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 1st at 7 p.m. in the evening. This commission meeting is adjourned. Hello.
There we go.